What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, PB The Plug, and in today's episode, we finally got a Woj bomb. Kyrie Irving is being sent to the Dallas Mavericks in return for Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, a 2029 first-round pick, and some second-round picks. Finally, trade season has begun. Now, the first thing we have to talk about is the Dallas Mavericks acquiring Kyrie Irving. I do love the move. All season, we've heard about Luka Doncic needing help. Not even just this season, but over the past few seasons. We've seen it's Luka, it's others, and if nobody else can do anything outside of Luka, the Dallas Mavericks are in trouble. And the one guy that they did have, Jalen Brunson, they unfortunately lost to my Knicks in the free agency market. Now, we've seen this year where there's been so many times Luka has almost more than a team. He's outscoring the other team, and there's literally nobody else on that roster that can do anything to help him, especially on the offensive side of the basketball. This move is a statement made by Mark Cuban in the Dallas Mavericks to say, hey, Luka, we believe in you. We're going to invest in you, and this is us trying to get you help. They tried with the Kristaps Porzingis trade. You have to give the Mavericks credit there. On paper, that looked very, very, very scary. Unfortunately, KP and his injuries didn't allow that to flourish the way a lot of us thought it could, and now they pivot and are trying with Kyrie Irving. This is going to be an interesting fit just because every player that we've seen with Luka play with throughout the course of his career, none of them have had the package or the offensive skill set that Kyrie Irving has with the basketball. A lot of the other players they've tried to put around Luka are guys who play without the basketball. You got guys like Reggie Bullock. You got Kristaps Porzingis, who was a stretch five, pick and popping. Christian Wood in a similar way. Maxi Kleber is a three-point shooter. Dwight Powell is a pick and roll roller. You have Dorian Finney-Smith, who's evolved into a 3-and-D catch and shoot guy. There's all of these guys, but none of them are offensive isolation scorers like Kyrie Irving. Even Jalen Brunson, to a lesser degree, was a guy that kind of played a little bit off of a Luka and was his backup who didn't really have to share the court with Luka. Kyrie Irving is not there to be a six-man player backing up Luka Doncic. He was acquired to play alongside of him throughout the course of these games and for the playoffs. So to see them coexist is going to be very interesting. Is there going to be more post-ups from Luka? Are there going to be possessions where Luka don't really touch the ball? Are they going to say, hey, Luka, continue to be that monster first quarter scorer, and Kyrie, you continue to be that closer fourth quarter scorer? Or are we going to kind of see Kyrie not really being involved, or is there going to be a crazy adjustment for Luka like we've seen with Trae Young and DeJounte? There's so many questions, but the one thing that makes this all different for the Mavericks is the fact that they're in the middle of a very tight playoff race out west. They're 6 right now above the play-in, and behind them you got some teams like the Golden State Warriors who've been playing really well. Unfortunately, obviously, today we found out they're going to be without Curry for the next couple of weeks with his leg injury. But then you also have the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are 6-4 in their last 10. Golden State is 6-4 in their last 10. The Utah is 6-4 in their last 10. New Orleans Pelicans are dealing with injuries. They're 1-9 in their last 10, but we just seen them beat the Los Angeles Lakers with the return of Brandon Ingram. And then you got Portland, who's 5-5 in their last 10. In that packed part of the Western Conference, the only team outside of the Pelicans that are below 500 basketball in the last 10 games is the Dallas Mavericks. So they're going to need to kind of figure this out rather quickly because they have a chance to either go up or go down. This is not a situation where I think the Mavericks can stay afloat. Teams are going up, teams are going down. They're right there with the They're right there with the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns is not that far away from them. They're a half game above them. The Clippers are a game above them. And then the Sacramento Kings are 2.5 games above the Dallas Mavericks. So if they play this right, they can move up. But if they play this wrong and it takes some time for them to gel and figure it out, they can also go down and have a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves jump them. Depending on how the Golden State Warriors do without Steph Curry, they could jump them. So that's going to be something to watch out for. Overall, in the trade from the Dallas Mavericks sense, I get it and I love it. You have to make an attempt when you have a talent like Luka. But what I will say is this. This is a very dangerous move for a few different reasons. Number one, I think Spencer Dinwiddie is a guy that you could probably get away with trading and dealing. He didn't feel like a life Maverick or anything like that. But Dorian Finney-Smith, it has been known, has been one of Luka's favorite teammates. And one thing about Dorian Finney-Smith, A lot of organizations have guys that they develop and you hold them close to your heart. And that was what he was with the Mavericks. It's the guy that came in very raw, just energy and defensive-minded player, and then you just saw the growth offensively, just catch and shoot. The three-point shot got better and better and better. He was a guy that was on the bench, that went to rotation piece, that was off the bench, and then became a starter, then a high-level starter. They became one of the best complementing players in the starting lineup next to Luka. You give him up, and Spencer Dinwiddie, who's provided you depth in a lot of different ways. He can play next to Luka. He can be a sixth man. He's had scoring outbursts that have won you games. Give that up for an essential half-season rental of Kyrie Irving. The other report of this trade is that there is no contract agreement. There's no talks. Both parties are going to play the season out, and at the end of the season, they'll discuss and see what they want to do. So this is kind of playing with fire, because essentially if this don't go right or don't work out, or Kyrie just don't want to be in Dallas and he always just wanted to be a Laker and team up with LeBron, you essentially gave up a guy that you developed and was a very focal part in what you had going on in Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't want to overhype Dorian Finney-Smith as a player, but I do think there's very big significant value in having guys that you develop and that fit what you do in your culture, and he was that type of player for the Mavericks. You give that up. You give up your depth in Spencer Dinwiddie, and if Kyrie walks, you're going to be left with Luka. We don't know what's going on with Christian Wood and his status, and if he'll return, you're only going to have Josh Green, Luka, and Dwight Powell potentially if Christian Wood and Kyrie Irving decide to walk away. So that's something I think is very, very risky. But it says a lot from Mark Cuban and the organization as far as statements to Luka that, hey, we believe in you, we're going to invest in you, and we think that you're this good that we should go out and make these type of moves that are highly risky, because if you can take us to these places and we give you the help, that'll put us over the top. So I think that's a big statement from Mark Cuban and the organization. Now for Brooklyn, the next domino effect obviously is everybody looking at Kevin Durant. There's already a report that the Phoenix Suns are ready and waiting for the Nets to make Kevin Durant available, or probably waiting for Kevin Durant to request a trade, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But I like this trade for Brooklyn in this sense. You were going to lose Kyrie Irving. He had no desire to be there after you couldn't come to contract extension agreements and the BS you tried to do. That's fine. Teams are able to run their organization the way they want to and make the decisions they think is best for their organization. I respect it. But once Kyrie Irving says, hey, I'm not going to be here. If I don't get my extension, I'm going to just leave. You now have to trade him. And what happens when he requests a trade, you're not going to be able to get equal value. He's on the last year of his deal on top of that. So what the Brooklyn Nets were able to do, though, was get pieces that I think can go right into the rotation. Yes, you can't replace Kyrie and his production and his skill set. No, obviously not. But I think Spencer Dinwiddie is still a very good above-average shot creator who can be a scoring punch off the bench or in the starting lineup next to Kevin Durant. He's a guy that can be a microwave scorer and have a 25-plus point scoring game or a consistent 16 and 17, depending on the role that you put him in. He's familiar with Brooklyn. He's played there before, has many great nights on that Brooklyn Nets floor. And I think Dorian Finney-Smith can be another guy who can bolster up that defense even more with Nicholas Claxton, Royce O'Neal, and Ben Simmons. So you have a very good defensive-minded group led by a defensive-minded coach in Jacques Vaughn. But the thing I will say is it puts a lot more pressure on Kevin Durant when he returns to be a bit of a facilitator. And we saw early in the season when Kyrie was suspended, ironically enough, against the Mavericks, when KD and Theo Pinson kind of had that back and forth. And KD after the game was like, hey, it's 1-on-5. Y'all whole defense is set to stop me and make any of my teammates do anything. That may be the regular scheme against you now. There's no Kyrie Irving. Back then when Kevin Durant said that, it's like, okay, at some point Kyrie is going to come back from his suspension. Kyrie is traded. He's not coming back. So on every single night, and especially in the playoffs in 7-game series, a team's whole entire scheme is going to be, we're not letting Kevin Durant get comfortable. We're not going to let him beat us. We want to see Royce O'Neal make plays. We want to see Dorian Finney-Smith make plays and shots. We want to see Spencer Dinwiddie make shots for 7 games straight in the series. Like, that's going to be the idea. And Kevin Durant is going to have to figure out how to adjust in that, especially when there's going to probably be instances where he's sharing the floor with Ben Simmons and Nicholas Claxton at the same time. They're going to need Ben Simmons to step up. I know every time Ben Simmons comes up, that's the conversation we're having. He needs to get aggressive. He needs to look at the rim. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but if now is the time. This is the time, because that's going to be a very big hurdle. Kevin Durant being a facilitator and trying to be their go-to scorer. I'm interested to see how Jacques Vaughn is going to initiate all of that. I think they do have a good mix of guys where they can have a bunch of different looks. You still have TJ Warren. You still have Seth Curry. You still have Joe Harris. There's a lot of different bodies and ways that you can use. You have defensive-minded players, some 3-and-D guys. You have some sharpshooters. You have a big in Nicholas Claxton. You have a firecracker in Cam Thomas, who we just saw score 44. Is Cam Thomas going to score 44 every game now? No, but he's showing what he's capable of doing if he gets an opportunity. You also have a situation where both teams could pivot and make other moves. I strongly believe that's what Dallas is going to have to do. They're going to have to find a way to fill the void defensively of a Dorian Finney-Smith. I know this is going to open up a lot of opportunity and chances for Josh Green, who we all love on that Mavericks team, but there's going to be a lot to ask for him to come from nothing and then throw right in the fire and say, hey, replace Dorian Finney-Smith defensively, because Kyrie is not a defender. Luka is not known as a defender, and they don't have a defensive anchor behind them. Your lineup is probably looking like Kyrie, Reggie Bullock, Luka, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber. Do they start Christian Wood now? Do they keep Christian Wood off the bench? Like, either way you toss it up, there's not a lot of defenders when you look at the Mavericks roster after this trade. You have Josh Green, who I like, and I think everybody else plays hard and it can give you effort defensively, but there's no real defense out there where you like, that guy is who we're putting on the opposite team's best player. You can with Reggie Bullock, but if you get matched up with, I don't know, the Nuggets, who is Reggie Bullock guarding? How do you match that up? Is Jamal Murray is being guarded by Reggie Bullock? Luka is on Michael Porter Jr. Like, who is Kyrie guard? Like, there's a lot going. Memphis, who guards Ja? Reggie Bullock? That's a tough assignment. Sacramento, who's guarding Fox? So the Clippers, again, who's guarding Kawhi or Paul George? They need some type of defense on his roster. There's been conversations at the Tim Hardaway Jr., Davis Bertans situation where you try to dangle those big contracts out and throw another pick in there and try to get somebody who can play some 3-and-D basketball for you. I don't know. But when I look at this roster after this trade, there's another move to be made. It doesn't have to be a significant move for some crazy all-star player, but they're going to need somebody who can be versatile on the perimeter side of the basketball defensively. They need a guy who can guard 2 through 4. Right now, when you look at their roster, I don't see that. You can try to make it Reggie Bullock, but I don't know how much success you're going to have there. And their defense already wasn't what Jason Kidd would prefer it to be. They've been kind of living off of their offense. Maybe they'll continue that trend. But in a Western Conference, you're going to have to be able to stop somebody. You're going to have to be able to stop somebody. And I think for the Nets, that's where this trade was the best option for them. Kyle Lowry from Miami wasn't going to cut it. The Clippers offering John Wall and Covington or what wasn't going to cut it. I can't even think of any rotational pieces the Lakers have that the Nets would have wanted. This was the best trade for the Nets to not replace Kyrie Irving, but to give them something that they have to fill some type of void and to make them deeper. They have Kevin Durant, Nicholas Claxton, you have Seth Curry, Joe Harris, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, Day'Ron Sharpe. They have a TJ Warren, who they got guys like Yuta Watanabe. They have a good 10 to 11 bodies that can play a lot of different ways. Or, again, they could go out there and make themselves an extra move. I will say, when you look at the Dallas Mavericks schedule, before the All-Star break, they have 6 games left. Saturday, on the 4th, yesterday, they started a 5-game road trip out west. And it started with a loss to the Golden State Warriors. And then tomorrow, they're going to be playing Utah. Hopefully, that's Kyrie Irving's debut. I would hope. You would hope for him to be able to play a game against a team like Utah, who are right behind you in the standings. You don't want to go out there, not having Kyrie Irving and then also not having the 2 guys you just traded for him. You kind of, empty-handed there in Utah against a team that's right next to you in the standings. After that, you have the Los Angeles Clippers. They've been playing better as of late. Kawhi and PG are both playing. You need Kyrie for that. After that, you play back-to-back nights against the Kings on their home floor. The Kings are a tough matchup. And then when you go back home, you play against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are also right behind you out west. And then after that, you go all the way back to Denver, and you play the best team out west. So you have a stretch before All-Star break of 6 games that ain't going to be easy. And you're going to need to perform because, like I said, 6 games is big right now west. If you go 4-2, the Mavericks may be the 5th or the 4th seed. If you go 2-4, 1-5, the Mavericks could be out of the play-in. It's that tight out west. So it's very interested, and I'm very curious to see how fast they're going to throw Kyrie out there and how quickly him and Luka can figure out a way to coexist. Are they going to have it down packed day one? No. But they have to have it to a point where they can win some games and figure it out at the same time because they can't afford some gelling period where they kind of go on a skid of losing 3 in a row, losing 4 in a row, losing, going 2-5 in the last 7. They can't afford to have that right now just because of the circumstance they are in the Western Conference standings. Now, on the other side, the Brooklyn Nets, they're kind of more comfortable. They're the 4th seed right now at East. They're 32-20. They're 5-5 over the last 10, and all they're trying to do is play 500 basketball until they can get the return of Kevin Durant. And when you look at the standings out East, there's a little bit more breathing room for the Brooklyn Nets, right? They're right there with the Cavaliers, a game above them. And then after that, Miami Heat is 4 games behind the Nets at 6. And then the 7th seed New York Knicks are 5 games behind them. So they have a lot more breathing room than the Dallas Mavericks out East. And then above them is the Philadelphia 76ers, and that's a 2.5 game difference. So if the Brooklyn Nets start to put things together and get Kevin Durant back at a decent time, they can look towards trying to get that 3 seed and just secure themselves as a home court advantage team in the playoffs. So I like where the Nets are. I like this trade for them. Like I said, they get 2 rotational pieces. They're going to get a first-round pick. That's a pick that you can use to, maybe make some type of move if you wanted to pivot and do something else. And I think they can still be competitive. Are they going to be the same type of team? Probably not, man. Probably not. And the domino effect is all eyes on Kevin Durant. How does the season play out for the Nets? The best thing they can do is give him a chance to win and compete. If they can get past the first round, if they can give somebody a test in the second round, hell, if they can get to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think Kevin Durant is extremely happy. But if you get bounced in the first round, if it's embarrassing again, if they get made a fool, then you have to expect Kevin Durant and his team are going to look for ways to get out of there because Kyrie Irving was the missing piece for them to try to have some type of duo to elevate them to championship status. Dallas playing with fire. If it works, great. You lock this duo up and you continue to try to add pieces around them. But if this explodes, this could get ugly really, really quick, and you'll have to figure out a way to satisfy Luka. Because the last thing you want to do is lose Kyrie and lose the patience of Luka. Free agency class is not going to be that star-studded. It's not like, hey, if we lose Kyrie, we can go replace. D'Angelo Russell will be out there. And I think that's going to be the highlighted name. Unless James Harden or somebody opts out or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting, man. This is a great start to the trade season. We got the deadline less than a week away. I'm excited. I hope y'all excited. Let me know y'all thoughts. I know we got a bunch of Net fans and Maverick fans. We got some Kyrie Irving fans. How do y'all feel about these moves? I'm going to grade this move as an A for the Nets just because I feel like it happened so quickly and they were still able to get 2 rotational pieces, so I think are going to be very good for them. You get a first-round pick who you can throw to another team in another type of deal if you want to do Joe Harris and a first-round pick for whatever. And then I'm going to give this a B for the Mavericks just because it's extremely risky and you still could do everything right and lose him if Kyrie Irving really deep down in his heart just is like, man, I just really want to reunite with Bron in L.A., then you really are going to come back next season or go into the offseason as the Mavericks with 1 less first-round pick, no Kyrie Irving, no Dorian Finney-Smith, no Spencer Dinwiddie, the opportunity to lose Christian Wood in free agency and probably just sit there with a team of Luka, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, Dwight Powell, and Maxi Kleber. And I think that's a big-ass mess. As always, I'm Pee Wee the Plug. This is NBA Weekly. I enjoy you guys. Stay locked. Get the notification bell on because the trade season is starting, and we're going to have a lot more of these NBA Weeklies. As always, I'm out. Peace.